My friend, yes, you. The one holding this screen, searching for a spark in the darkness. Do not look away. Tonight, in this quiet moment between your yesterday and your tomorrow, I wish to speak with you, as one weary traveler to another. I am Abraham Lincoln. You may know me as the rail splitter, the president, the man with the tall hat and the sad eyes. But tonight, I am simply a fellow who has known failure so intimately it should have paid rent in my heart. I am a man who has wept until my soul ran dry, who has buried children and dreams with equal agony, who has faced defeat in elections, in business, in love, defeated so many times that the word defeat began to feel like my middle name. And yet, here I am, speaking to you. Not from a pedestal, but from the trenches, from the mud of struggle that I know you are walking through right now. So pull your chair closer. Let the woe from outside fade. For the next 30 minutes, let us be alone together. You, me, and the truth about what it truly means to rise. You see, my friend, we live in an age of illusions. You scroll through your glowing screens and see the triumphs, the awards, the celebrations, the perfect smiles of those who have made it. And in your quiet moments, you whisper to yourself, they have something I lack. They were born for greatness. I was born for mediocrity. Stop, right there. Stop that thought before it poisons another second of your precious life. Let me tell you about born winners. I was born in a Kentucky log cabin with dirt floors. Not the romantic kind you see in paintings, the kind where the wind howls through the cracks and winter bites your bones while you sleep. My mother taught me to read by firelight, tracing letters in the ashes when we had no paper. My father could barely write his own name. I had 1 year of formal schooling. 1 year. The rest I stole, stealing education the way a hungry man steals bread. At 22, I failed in business. The store I ran with my partner went bankrupt, and I spent the next 17 years paying off debts that were not even mine alone. At 23, I ran for the state legislature. I was defeated, crushed, humiliated. At 24, I failed in business again. At 25, I ran for legislature again, and won. Ah, you think, here comes the turnaround. No, my friend. Life does not follow movie scripts. At 26, the woman I loved, Anne Rutledge, died of typhoid fever. I walked to her grave in the rain so many times that my friends feared for my sanity. They were right to fear. At 27, I had a nervous breakdown. I was bedridden for 6 months, unable to function, drowning in a darkness that had no name in those days. At 29, I ran for Speaker of the Illinois House, defeated. At 31, I ran for elector, defeated. At 34, I ran for Congress, defeated. At 37, I ran for Congress again, defeated again. At 39, I tried to become the commissioner of the General Land Office in Washington. They rejected me. I was not even important enough to be rejected to my face. They simply ignored my application. At 45, I ran for the Senate of the United States, defeated. At 47, I ran for Vice President of the United States. I received less than 100 votes at the convention, less than 100. At 49, I ran for the Senate again, and I lost again, to Stephen Douglas, in those famous debates you may have read about. The crowds cheered for me, the newspapers praised me, and the voters chose the other man. And then, at 51, in the year 1860, I was elected President of the United States. Do you see? Do you see the pattern? Not a steady climb, my friend, not a ladder, a battlefield, A bloody, muddy, soul-crushing battlefield where I was knocked down 9 times for every time I managed to stand. So when you look at your own failures, when you count the rejections, the closed doors, the silent phones, the empty bank accounts, the dreams that died before they could breathe, I need you to understand something. You are not broken. You are being forged. But let me not paint too pretty a picture. Let me not stand here, a ghost from history, and tell you that failure is just a stepping stone, without acknowledging the agony of the fall. Failure hurts. It burns. It is not an abstract concept to be embroidered on pillows. It is a knife in the gut at 3 in the morning. It is the taste of ash in your mouth when you see others succeed where you have stumbled. It is the voice in your head that whispers, "You are not enough. You will never be enough." I know that voice. I have heard it. When my little son Eddie died in 1850, just shy of 4 years old, I carved his initials into my heart with a dull knife of guilt. I was not there enough. I did not pray enough. I failed him as a father. When my beloved Willie died in the White House in 1862, while I was president, while the nation was tearing itself apart in civil war, I walked the corridors at night like a madman. I held his little body until they forced me to let go. Mary, my wife, never recovered. Neither fully did I. And the failures of the battlefield. Oh, my friend, if you think your setbacks are public, imagine commanding an army while newspapers call you an idiot, while your own generals disobey you, while thousands of young men die because of your decisions. General McClellan, who I gave command of the Army of the Potomac, he had the troops, he had the supplies, he had everything, and he would not move. He would not fight. And I, the commander-in-chief, could not make him. I would walk to the telegraph office at night, alone, to read the casualty reports. Hundreds dead, thousands. For nothing. For a hill not taken, a river not crossed. And I would sit there, in that small room, with the ticking of the clock the only sound, and I would wonder, am I the worst president in history? Am I destroying the last best hope of Earth? The despair was not philosophical. It was physical. It sat on my chest like a stone. It made my hands shake. It made me weep in cabinet meetings, in front of my secretaries, in front of my enemies. So if you are in that place right now, if you are in the dark wood where the straight way is lost, I do not come to you with easy answers. I come to you with companionship. You are not alone in that darkness. I have been there. Great men and women throughout history have been there. The difference is not that we did not fall. The difference is that we did not stay down. But how, you ask me? How do you stand when your legs are broken? How do you hope when every evidence points to hopelessness? I will tell you my secret. It is not courage. Courage is the word others use to describe what looks like bravery from the outside. From the inside, it is simply the refusal to accept the finality of the present moment. I stood up because I could not imagine staying down. Not because I was strong, but because I was stubborn. Not because I was optimistic, but because I was angry. Angry at the idea that my story would end in defeat, that the last chapter would be written by someone else, that my life would be a cautionary tale rather than a testament. And I had work to do. I had purpose. My friend, you must find your purpose. Not your job, not your career. Your purpose, the thing that makes your suffering meaningful. For me, it was preserving the Union, freeing the enslaved, proving that government of the people could survive. For you, it may be something entirely different. Raising a child who knows they are loved, building a business that serves your community, creating art that touches a lonely heart, simply being kind in a world that breeds cruelty. Purpose is the rope that pulls you out of the pit. Find it. Cling to it. Let it hurt if it must. The pain of striving is better than the numbness of surrender. I remember a day in 1858, after I had lost the Senate race to Douglas. I was 49 years old. I had failed at almost everything I had tried. I was exhausted, financially strained, politically damaged. And I received a letter from a friend asking if I was done with politics. Should I retire to the practice of law? Should I accept that my public life was over? I wrote back, I am not discouraged. I am only tired. And I will rest, and I will rise again. That is all. Rest and rise again. Rest is not surrender. Rest is gathering strength. The oak sleeps in the acorn. The bird sleeps in the egg. The mountain sleeps in the stone. Do not confuse stillness with death. Let me speak to you now about the weapon that saved me. The weapon that is free to anyone who will pick it up, regardless of birth, wealth, or circumstance. The weapon of self-education. I told you I had 1 year of formal schooling. 1 year. But I never stopped learning. I walked miles to borrow books. I read by candlelight until my eyes burned. I read the Bible, Shakespeare, Euclid, Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England. I read until the words became part of my blood. When I became a lawyer, I taught myself. When I became a politician, I taught myself. When I became president, I taught myself military strategy, economics, the art of command. I was not naturally gifted. I was naturally curious. I was hungry for the kind of knowledge that turns a rail splitter into a leader. My friend, in your pocket right now, you carry access to more information than I had in my entire lifetime. More books, more lectures, more wisdom from every corner of the globe. And yet I fear you use this miracle to watch cats fall off tables, to argue with strangers, to envy the curated lives of people you will never meet. Stop. Reclaim your mind. If you are unemployed, use the time to learn a skill that makes you unemployable, so valuable that the world must notice you. If you are heartbroken, use the time to learn about the human heart. Read the poets who have wept before you, the philosophers who have wondered about love and loss. If you are lost, use the time to learn about yourself. Journal, meditate, walk in nature until the noise subsides and you can hear your own voice again. I became Abraham Lincoln, not because I was born special, but because I refused to stop becoming. Every day I added something to my mind. Every day I chipped away at my own ignorance. And slowly, imperceptibly, the rail splitter became the president. The joke-telling frontiersman became the author of words that would be etched in stone. 77 years ago, those words were not born in a moment of inspiration. They were born in 40 years of reading, thinking, failing, and rising. The Gettysburg Address, 272 words that redefined a nation, took me a lifetime to write. What are you building with your lifetime? What foundation are you laying today, in this hour, with this choice? I must speak to you about a poison that I see coursing through your modern world, the poison of comparison. You look at your neighbor's house, your colleague's promotion, your friend's marriage, a stranger's followers, and you measure your worth against their highlight reel. You do not see their midnight doubts. You do not see their therapy bills, their secret shames, their own battles with the darkness. You see the mask, and you compare it to your naked face, and you find yourself wanting. Stop this. It is suicide by inches. I spent years envying the polished politicians of the East, the Harvard men, the inheritors of wealth and connections. Stephen Douglas, my great rival, was everything I was not. Handsome, eloquent, confident, surrounded by powerful friends. When we debated, crowds would cheer for him before he spoke a word, simply because he looked like a leader. I looked like, as one newspaper put it, a baboon. And yet, when the great test came, when the Union needed not a polished speaker but a stubborn, weary, determined soul who would not quit, I was the one still standing. Douglas died in 1861, broken by his own compromises. I carried on. Your journey is not their journey. Your timeline is not their timeline. The seeds they planted may bloom early, but bloom quickly and fade. Your oak may take decades to reach the sky, but when it stands, it will stand for centuries. I did not become president until I was 51. Colonel Sanders did not franchise his chicken recipe until he was 62. Vera Wang did not design her first dress until she was 40. Grandma Moses did not begin painting until she was 78. The race is not to the swift, my friend. The race is to the one who keeps running when their lungs burn, when their muscles scream, when every instinct says to stop. That is you. That has always been you. You just forgot. And now, let me speak to those of you who lead, or who will lead. For leadership is not a title. It is not a corner office or a social media verification. Leadership is responsibility. Leadership is choosing to eat last, to sleep last, to hope last. When I was president, I did not seek glory. I sought results. I pardoned deserters when my generals wanted them shot, because I saw the boys they were, not the soldiers they failed to be. I visited the wounded in hospitals, shaking hands with men who had no hands to shake back. I wrote personal letters to mothers who had lost sons, knowing that no words could heal them, but that silence would be worse. I was not a perfect leader. I made mistakes that cost lives. I trusted men who betrayed me. I delayed emancipation longer than I should have, waiting for the right political moment. I was, as I said myself, driven to my knees by the overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go. But I led. Through the bloodiest war in American history, through the death of my son, through the collapse of my marriage, through the assassination threats that arrived daily, I led. Not because I was unafraid, but because I was more afraid of what would happen if I stopped. You too are a leader, perhaps of a team, perhaps of a family, perhaps only of yourself. But you set the tone. You cast the shadow. When you choose resilience, you give others permission to be resilient. When you choose integrity in a corrupt system, you prove that integrity is possible. When you choose kindness to the unkind, you plant seeds you may never see bloom. Leadership is not about being seen. It is about being steady. It is about being the rock in the river that the current crashes against but cannot move. Be that rock, even if no one thanks you, even if no one knows your name. History is full of anonymous heroes who held the line while the world slept. We are nearing the end of our time together, and so I must speak of the final enemy. Not failure, not defeat, but the fear that your life will not matter, that you will pass through this world like a shadow, leaving no trace, changing nothing, forgotten before the grass grows over your grave. I felt this fear, even as president, especially as president. The war dragged on year after bloody year. 4 million enslaved people waited for freedom that seemed always just out of reach. And I wondered, will they remember me as the man who tried and failed, as the president who presided over the collapse of the American experiment? I found comfort in an odd place, in the eternal. Not in religion, though I was a religious man in my own way, but in the knowledge that nothing worth doing is done for the memory of men. It is done for the moral universe itself. When I issued the Emancipation Proclamation, I knew it was imperfect. It did not free all slaves, only those in rebellious states. It was a military measure, a political calculation as much as a moral crusade. And yet it turned the tide. It gave the war meaning beyond union. It set in motion a force that not even my death could stop. You see, my friend, you do not need to see the harvest to plant the seed. You do not need to live to see the promised land to lead your people toward it. Moses died on the mountain, looking over into a land he would never enter. Was his life a failure? Or was it the necessary prelude to everything that came after? Your work, your love, your struggle, it matters, even if you never see how, even if the world never knows your name. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice, and you are bending it right now, with every choice for good over evil, for love over hate, for persistence over despair. I died at 56. A gunshot in a theater. A life ended just as victory was won. I did not get to enjoy the peace I had purchased with 4 years of blood and sorrow. And yet, I do not regret. I would do it all again. Every failure, every loss, every sleepless night. Because the alternative was to be small, to be safe, to be nothing. Do not be nothing. Be everything. Be loud, be flawed, be exhausted, be ridiculous, but be something. Leave a mark, even if it is only a scar. Scars are proof that you fought. And so, my friend, we come to the end. But for you, this is the beginning. I have not given you easy words. I have not promised you success. I have only promised you that your struggle is noble, that your pain is meaningful, and that you are capable of far more than you believe. Tonight, when you close your eyes, do not count your failures. Count your stands. Count the times you got up when staying down would have been easier. Count the kindnesses you have shown, the battles you have fought, the love you have given. That is your true measure. Not your bank account, not your followers, not your trophies, your stands. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings and the old despair tries to pull you back under, rise. Rise like the sun, not because you feel like it, but because the world needs your light. Rise because there is work only you can do. Rise because the person you are meant to become is waiting for you in the future, and he is begging you not to quit. I am Abraham Lincoln. I was defeated more times than I can count. I was broken by grief, paralyzed by doubt, surrounded by enemies, and finally killed by an assassin's bullet. And I would not trade a single moment of it, because in the end, I stood for something. I stood for the Union. I stood for freedom. I stood for the idea that ordinary people in their ordinary struggles can achieve extraordinary things. You are ordinary. You are extraordinary. You are both, as I was both. And you are needed. Go now. The speech is over. The work begins. Fail again. Rise again. Love again. Live again. And when your own dark night comes, as it will, remember this. A man who has never failed has never tried. A man who has never wept has never loved. A man who has never fallen has never known the glory of the stand. Stand, my friend. Stand now. Stand always. The world is waiting. The world is waiting for you.